6 signs someone is secretly jealous of you. Sometimes, the people who applaud you the loudest are the ones who envy you the most. Jealousy doesn't always scream, it whispers, it pretends. It hides behind praise, laughs at your jokes, and still secretly hopes you fail. That's why today's message is so important. To help you identify the silent killers of your peace, people who appear as friends but are quietly rooting against you. In this powerful session, I'm going to break down 6 clear signs that someone is secretly jealous of you. And I promise, once you learn these, you'll start seeing your relationships differently. Some people are not in your life to support you. They're there to study you, copy you, or compete with you. Don't be blindsided anymore. If you want to protect your vision, your peace, and your future, you need to stay until the end, because the last 2 signs will reveal the jealousy you never suspected. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Let's begin. Jealousy is a strange emotion. It rarely announces itself directly, but it always leaves traces. Most people who are secretly jealous of you will never say it out loud. They won't come up to you and confess, "I envy your life." Instead, their jealousy hides behind a mask, a smile, a polite tone, a fake compliment. But if you pay attention, their actions will reveal what their words try to conceal. They won't openly criticize your success, but they might avoid acknowledging it altogether. If you post a win, a promotion, or an achievement, they stay quiet, or they scroll past without a single word. Silence becomes their form of resistance, and when they do speak, it's rarely to uplift. Their compliments, if they give any, are laced with subtle digs like, "That's great for you. I guess things just come easy for some people." That's not admiration. That's resentment hiding under sarcasm. They may stop sharing their own goals or progress with you, not because they're growing distant, but because your presence makes them feel inadequate. Being around someone they secretly envy is like looking into a mirror that reflects all their perceived failures. Instead of using your growth as motivation, they internalize it as comparison. And comparison, when not managed with maturity, breeds bitterness. You might also notice subtle forms of sabotage. Maybe they forget to invite you to opportunities you're qualified for. Or they downplay your abilities in front of others, not in cruel or obvious ways, but in quiet, dismissive tones that make people question your value. For example, they might say things like, "Yeah, she's doing well, but it's mostly luck." Or, "He's good but a bit overrated." And these are not slips of the tongue. These are quiet attacks dressed in neutrality. Another sign is energy shift. Before you started growing, evolving, or gaining attention, maybe they were always supportive, close, and communicative. But once you stepped into your purpose or started to stand out, the warmth faded. Conversations became short. The connection felt forced. That change in dynamic isn't a coincidence. It's often the result of inner conflict. They liked you when you were on their level or below. Now that you've elevated, they feel threatened, even if they won't admit it. Jealousy doesn't always come from enemies. It often comes from those closest to you. Friends, co-workers, even family. That's what makes it so hard to detect. You don't expect envy from people you love, but the truth is, jealousy is not about you. It's about how your life exposes what someone else is avoiding in their own. Your peace makes their chaos feel louder. Your progress makes their stagnation more obvious. And instead of being inspired, they retreat into comparison and start resenting you for what you represent. So how do you protect yourself? By being aware, by not ignoring the energy shifts, the dismissive tones, the backhanded compliments, or the unexplained distance. Don't let the silence fool you. Jealousy is loud in its own quiet way. You don't need to confront everyone, but you do need to distance yourself from those who can't celebrate you. You don't need validation from people who secretly compete with you. Walk humbly, yes, but walk wisely. One of the clearest signs that someone is secretly jealous of you is how they respond when life hits you with setbacks versus when you experience success. Their true feelings don't show up in the big moments where everyone is clapping or crying with you. They reveal themselves in the subtle shifts of behavior when no one's really watching. The secretly jealous person may appear polite on the outside, but their emotional responses are often completely misaligned with yours. When you go through failure, maybe you lost a job, went through a breakup, or experienced public disappointment, instead of supporting you with genuine empathy, they become unusually quiet. Some might offer a generic, "I'm sorry," but deep down they feel a sense of relief, even satisfaction. Why? Because your setback temporarily levels the playing field. It makes them feel better about where they are. Your fall soothes their insecurity, and this relief is often masked with false concern or fake support. They might say, "I knew that would be tough for you," or "that kind of thing doesn't always work out." These aren't expressions of care. They're subtle confirmations that your downfall validates their silent wish for you to not get too far ahead. They may even use your low moment as an opportunity to give advice you didn't ask for, positioning themselves as the wise one or realist, when in reality, they're savoring your vulnerability. But perhaps even more telling is how they react when you succeed. When you post about a big win, a personal goal achieved, a promotion, a new relationship, or a breakthrough, their response is lukewarm or even absent. They might ignore the news completely, scroll past your post without liking it, or quickly change the topic in conversation. If they do acknowledge it, it's often with forced enthusiasm or backhanded praise. "Well, that's impressive. I guess everything's easy when you know the right people." These kinds of statements are designed to reduce your success to luck or connections, instead of recognizing your effort and talent. A jealous person cannot fully celebrate someone else's elevation because in their mind your growth feels like their decline. They view life as a competition where someone else's shine dims their own light. Your success becomes a threat, not an inspiration. And so they cope by minimizing your achievements. To you, to others, or in their own mind, they may even try to shift the spotlight by talking about their own achievements immediately after hearing yours, not out of shared excitement, but as a way to recenter the attention on themselves. What makes this behavior especially toxic is that it often comes from people close to you, friends, co-workers, even family. You expect strangers to criticize you, but when those you trust secretly cheer for your failure, it hurts in a different way. That's why it's so important to pay attention not just to what people say, but how they say it, and what they choose not to say at all. Silence can be just as revealing as words. Real support celebrates with you in success and sits with you in struggle, without competition, envy, or conditions. If someone consistently avoids celebrating your wins or subtly enjoys your losses, don't ignore it. That kind of energy, even when unspoken, can drain your spirit and blur your vision. Protect your peace by surrounding yourself with people who genuinely want to see you rise, not those who smile in your face, but secretly wait for you to fall. Jealousy rarely shows up with a clear label. It doesn't walk into the room and say, "I'm here because I envy you." Instead, it wears masks. And 3 of its favorite disguises are sarcasm, criticism, and passive-aggressive behavior. These behaviors allow the jealous person to release their frustration and insecurity without being held accountable for it. They can hurt you with a smile, mock you under the guise of a joke, or undermine you while pretending to care. Sarcasm is one of the most common weapons of the secretly jealous. It's easy to hide behind. They might make fun of your ambition, your lifestyle, or even your personality, all while laughing it off. "Oh, look at you, Mr. CEO now." Or, "She thinks she's a motivational speaker now." It sounds like teasing, but there's a bitter undertone. Sarcasm allows them to express their discomfort with your growth without having to admit that it bothers them. It's a coward's way of throwing shade. And when you call it out, they'll say you're being too sensitive, or that they were just joking, but you can feel the truth beneath the joke. Their words come from a place of comparison and insecurity, not humor. Criticism is another tool of hidden jealousy. It doesn't always come in the form of harsh judgment. Sometimes it's disguised as constructive feedback, especially when you didn't ask for it. Maybe you finally take a risk, launch a project, or put yourself out there. Instead of encouragement, the jealous person responds with something like, "You should have done it this way," or "I don't know if that's going to work for you." These criticisms aren't aimed at helping you grow. They're designed to plant doubt. When someone can't be happy for you, they'll try to control your narrative. They'll make your success feel small, risky, or unearned. Why? Because your progress makes them feel left behind, and criticism gives them a way to reassert control. Passive-aggressive behavior is where jealousy becomes especially toxic. This is when someone can't say how they really feel, so they express it through small, intentional actions. They show up late to your big moments. They forget to invite you to gatherings. They make subtle digs in group settings. They praise everyone else except you. These may seem like small things, but when they start to stack up, you realize there's a pattern. It's a slow attempt to diminish your presence, to make you question your worth, or to push you into self-doubt. And the hardest part is, these behaviors are hard to confront directly, because the jealous person always has a way to make it seem accidental or harmless. When someone is secretly jealous of you, they want to see you fall, but they won't say it. Instead, they chip away at your confidence in clever, indirect ways. You might even start doubting yourself, wondering if you're imagining things. That's why it's important to trust your intuition. If someone's sarcasm always feels like a jab, if their criticism never uplifts, if their support feels performative, believe the pattern, not the excuse. Jealousy is rarely loud, but it's always intentional. Surround yourself with people who can joke with you without hurting you, correct you without competing with you, and challenge you without trying to control you. Real friends won't hide behind sarcasm, won't tear down your dreams, and won't pretend to support you while secretly hoping you fail. Recognize the disguise. One of the more subtle yet revealing signs of jealousy is imitation without acknowledgement. A person who secretly envies you often finds themselves copying your ideas, your style, your habits, and even your words, but never giving you credit. To them, your originality is both inspiring and threatening, so they adopt it quietly, hoping to capture the same success or attention you have, all while pretending it was their idea from the start. This behavior usually begins innocently. Maybe you change your approach to work, start a new fitness routine, launch a creative project, or shift your personal style. You share it publicly or mention it in conversation, and suddenly you notice that the same person who once mocked or ignored your choices is now doing the exact same thing. But rather than saying, "I saw what you did and it inspired me," they act like they came up with it themselves. Imitation, when it comes from admiration, is a form of flattery. But imitation driven by jealousy carries a different energy. It's often competitive, not collaborative. It's as if the person is trying to steal your blueprint, not because they admire you, but because they want to be you or outdo you. Deep down, your success makes them feel behind. Instead of working on themselves or applauding you, they take shortcuts by copying what you've done. Then try to one-up you without ever mentioning your influence. This can be incredibly frustrating, especially when you've worked hard to develop your path. You've taken risks, made sacrifices, and thought deeply about your vision. When someone else takes pieces of that and rebrands it as their own, it feels like theft. And worse, when they begin to get praise for the very thing you pioneered, they rarely, if ever, mention your name. In fact, some might even position themselves as the original, acting as if you were the one who copied them. In professional settings, this behavior can be especially damaging. You may share an idea in a meeting only to see a colleague reword and present it later as theirs. Or you develop a unique strategy only to watch someone adopt it, tweak a few details, and take the credit. And because they're not outwardly hostile or confrontational, it's hard to call them out without looking petty or insecure. That's the trap of the secretly jealous imitator. They operate in the gray areas, just enough to stay hidden while slowly draining your sense of originality. In relationships and friendships, this behavior can also lead to tension. You might notice a friend suddenly adopting your way of speaking, mimicking your social media content, dressing like you, or hanging around the same people you introduced them to. It can feel strange, even invasive, especially when they never mention you as the source of their newfound lifestyle. Again, the issue isn't the imitation, it's the absence of recognition, the refusal to honor the influence you've had on them. What's important to remember is that imitation, rooted in jealousy, is a reflection of their inner conflict, not your inadequacy. People who are secure in themselves don't mind giving credit. They aren't afraid to say, "You inspired me," because they aren't in competition with you. But those who feel inferior often steal ideas as a way to boost themselves without dealing with their own insecurities. And they rarely say thank you, because to do so would be to admit they're watching you more than they want to admit. So if you find someone consistently echoing your moves, but never acknowledging your voice, trust what you see. Your originality intimidates them. And no matter how much they try to replicate it, what's born from imitation can never match what's rooted in authenticity. One of the clearest signs that someone is secretly jealous of you is how they react when things go wrong in your life. While most genuine friends and supporters show concern, encouragement, or quiet solidarity during your tough seasons, a jealous person often experiences something different inside. Relief, satisfaction, and sometimes even hidden joy. They won't always say it out loud, but their reactions reveal everything. When you succeed, they may offer forced smiles, lukewarm compliments, or sudden silence. But when you stumble, they suddenly become more present, more engaged, even more talkative. You'll notice they're quick to bring up your setback in conversations, sometimes under the disguise of checking on you. But more often, it's their subtle way of savoring the moment. To them, your failure levels the playing field. It makes them feel less behind, less threatened, more superior. A jealous person can't celebrate your wins wholeheartedly because your victories remind them of what they haven't achieved. Every step you take forward confronts their insecurities. So when you lose, even temporarily, it feels like a break from that pressure. It gives them a reason to breathe easier, and in those moments they might become unusually kind or sympathetic, not because they care, but because they feel safe while you're down. You may notice this in their body language, tone, or timing. Maybe you announced a new job and they responded with a brief, "That's cool," before changing the subject. But when you later share that the job didn't work out, suddenly they want to talk about it for 20 minutes. They might say things like, "I had a feeling it wasn't going to last." Or sometimes things aren't meant to be, as if they always doubted your success but never said so. Until now. This behavior becomes even more evident if you're used to being the high achiever in your circle. Your wins may have placed you in a position of admiration or respect, but a secretly jealous person doesn't admire. They compete. So they watch your every move, waiting for cracks in your progress. They'll never admit it, but your failure gives them a strange sense of comfort. It confirms their inner belief that you're not invincible, that maybe they aren't that far behind after all. Sometimes they may even help spread news of your mistakes or disappointments faster than they ever shared your achievements. It's not always malicious gossip. It's more about narrative control. They want others to see that you're flawed, that you're struggling, that you're human. Because when others see your humanity, it brings your shine down to a level they can tolerate. It's painful to realize that someone close to you might secretly root against you, but it's also clarifying. It helps you discern who's truly in your corner and who's only there for the highs and lows that make them feel better about themselves. A true supporter lifts you higher, celebrates your growth, and stands with you when things fall apart, not because they need you to lose, but because they genuinely care. So pay close attention to how people react when life doesn't go your way. The ones who celebrate your pain more than your progress were never clapping for you in the first place. And in recognizing that, you free yourself to protect your space, guard your vision, and surround yourself with people who don't need you to fail in order to feel okay about their own journey. One of the most subtle and confusing signs that someone is secretly jealous of you is when they constantly imitate you, your ideas, your style, your words, your approach, but never acknowledge where it came from. It's imitation without appreciation. It's copying without credit, and it often masks an inner struggle between admiration and envy. At first, it might even feel flattering. You notice they start dressing a bit like you, speaking like you, sharing similar thoughts on social media, or pursuing the same goals. But over time, the pattern becomes too obvious to ignore. Every time you take a step, they follow, but they pretend as if they arrived there on their own. They want what you have, but they don't want you to know it. So instead of honoring the inspiration, they keep their admiration hidden behind silence or competition. This kind of behavior is not always born out of malice. In many cases, it comes from deep insecurity. They see something in you that they wish they had. Your confidence, your creativity, your consistency. It stirs something inside them. But instead of asking you for guidance or giving you praise, they try to duplicate it in hopes of achieving the same results without revealing the source. The problem isn't that they're inspired. Inspiration is powerful and necessary. The issue is the lack of honesty and acknowledgement. They may start using your phrases, launching similar projects, or giving advice you once gave them, but when asked, they never mention your name. It's not about needing constant recognition. It's about noticing when someone is drawing from your well while pretending it's their own. Sometimes they'll even go a step further. Not only will they take your ideas, they may begin to present themselves as originators, claiming authority in the very space you built, positioning themselves as equals or even superiors in areas you've poured time, effort, and originality into. And when you confront the resemblance, they act surprised or dismissive, saying things like, "It's just a coincidence," or "I was thinking the same thing." But deep down, you know the pattern is intentional. This behavior creates an emotional contradiction. On one hand, they clearly admire what you do, otherwise they wouldn't be mimicking it. On the other, they refuse to give you the respect or credit you've earned. That's the tension of jealousy. It wants what you have, but it also resents you for having it first. And so instead of building something uniquely their own, they become a quiet reflection of your path, trying to claim its shine without honoring the light. It's important to stay grounded when you experience this. Don't let it derail your progress or push you into bitterness. The truth always finds a way to surface. People can imitate your moves, but they can't replicate your soul, your journey, or your integrity. What's authentic cannot be duplicated with lasting power. You don't need to call it out publicly, but you should take note of it privately. These are the kind of people who might not cheer you on sincerely because in their mind they're secretly competing. They may never give you credit, but your influence speaks louder than their silence. And while they mimic your steps, they'll always walk behind you because true leadership can't be faked.